I know that I've said any number of times, and I want you to understand that it's true, I'm not getting any younger. I'm not an old guy, not a really old guy anyway, but I've certainly seen more than half a century of life, and that's, saying something for a lot of folks. They don't necessarily manage to exist for that long. But I've worked in a number of different places as a result, and in a number of different situations, circumstances, and so forth, including having done about 9 years in the military. And there's this problem that I've found that's been consistent across all of these, quote, domains, if you will, and it is picking the one for the job. Now, this actually has multiple sort of connotations to it, because the first thing is when you talk about a person who is picked for a particular role in the workplace, whatever workplace it is, and that's not just workplace, it might be in your home or whatever as well. So for example, if you talk about somebody that's trained in computer software engineering, then that person is probably going to be somebody that you're going to be looking at when you look to hire for software development positions, right? So that's an overall sort of a thing. But there's also a more specific idea here too, and it is when you've got a person who's trained to do Java development, where they've worked with Microsoft databases. So for a specific task, you might have a stable of developers and only one or two of them that are suitable for that particular task. And this actually ends up being a much bigger problem than you realize, than most people realize. Maybe you realize it, and I'm underestimating you. That's distinctly possible. I'll be the first to acknowledge that may be the case. My point is to say that a lot of people, I don't think, realize that not only do you need somebody who knows how to do software development, but you need somebody who knows how to do a specific kind of development when you've got a particular project on your plate. And that also applies to any number of other kinds of positions. I'm just using software development because it's something that I happen to be rather familiar with. It happens in government as well, right? And part of that isn't just somebody who knows how. It's somebody who will learn how, or who will use their skills, leverage their skills in such a way that you will get the best bang for the buck out of what you're doing. The thing of it is, I'm bringing all of this up for a reason. And the reason that I'm bringing all of this up is not particularly complex on the one hand, and yet on the other, it's actually rather complex indeed. And it is that I was discussing with a family member who I spend a lot of my time discussing things with, the idea of one of the government representatives on a national level for the state of Arkansas. I believe he's a senator. I'm not going to get into details on that. But he's a conservative. He claims to be a conservative, and yet when it comes right down to it, there are certain things he's shown himself unwilling to do, right? And I acknowledge that. But here's the thing. Here's what I kind of, there are a number of things. Here I go again with here's the thing, right? The first thing that I want to bring up is that this guy, whether he's perfectly conservative, does largely support conservative causes. And for the person who I'm talking about, to whom I was talking recently, I know that that person supports the idea of the protection of the innocent, and particularly in the protection of unborn babies, right? He particularly supports that idea. And I don't blame him. That's a really good, very important thing to support, and I'll be the first to acknowledge that, okay? And the thing is, the politician in question, I believe, supports that same thing. I'm not sure what he can do about it, but he supports that. Right, and that's important. That's important to realize. So when it comes to protecting unborn children, I don't know anybody better for the job than this guy. But here's the thing, okay? If you go looking for software developers who actually live in my local area, you're going to find a fairly limited slate of people. It's fair. It's not horribly limited, but it's fairly limited because if you're looking for people who are really experienced and really able, you're going to find that you need certain things, and that probably not everybody is going to have all of the things that you need. And in fact, some people are going to be really well versed in parts of what you want and not particularly well versed in other parts. It depends on how they do in terms of adjusting or adapting to whether or not they're going to be somebody that you want working for you in the long run. When it comes to politicians, the field, in my mind, is a great deal narrower, right? Just how many people in your area are, say, for example, going to be willing to run as a senator for your state who meet the criteria that you have in mind as sort of a bare minimum for your expectation? I'm betting the number, excuse me for saying so, is not very large. So I guess what I'm getting at here is, if you look at the guy who's currently in office, say for example, and you decide that he's not meeting your needs, the next thing in my mind that you need to do is look at who is out there who might replace him. Now I'm going to tell you something that's a sad but true reality. I doubt you're going to find very many people who are going to do that. I just don't think that's going to happen. And further, and this is on multiple bases, by the way. One is, if people decide they like the guy who's currently in, they're going to continue to support him even when you don't. So if you run somebody up against that individual, he's going to have the support of a lot of people just because he was already there. But to make things worse, when you start looking at the criteria that you're suggesting or expecting in a given individual for whatever position it is, if you can find somebody who's more qualified, great. But I have this feeling you're going to have a hard time doing that. Now, I'll be the first to hope that I'm wrong in expecting that you're not going to find somebody that will replace this particular politician. But I have to tell you, I'm pretty sure I'm right. Now, if you happen to find somebody who you think will do that, I can understand, and I'm not telling you that you shouldn't support that individual, but what I am trying to say to you is, I just don't think you're going to do so. I just don't think you're going to find somebody. And that's like I say, that's not something that's specific and shoehorning into the political world. That's something that's just true for jobs in general. People have so many times told me, yeah, I don't think you're the right person for the job one way or another. And when they've done that, they've done it without really understanding what I brought to their little table. And that's true for politicians as well. And part of the problem, too, is how well a person communicates what he believes and who he is and so forth. And that, again, is regardless what position. If they're a software developer, if they can't tell you about software development, even if they can do it, a lot of people are going to have a hard time picking that person because they question whether or not they have the communication skills to fit within the team. And if you look at things like personality and culture of the individual in question and various other things, you're going to find that those factor in as well. And that also works for politics, because people are looking at a given individual and trying to decide, can this person communicate, or find people who can help him to communicate, him or her communicate better, right? And so there are any number of factors that have to fall in order to make a person actually suitable for a given position. And I'm just going to tell you that when it comes to politics, one of the reasons that people tend to pick the same person over and over again is they really believe better the bad guy you know than the bad guy you don't. And I don't really agree with that. I think that you should try new people if you find that the bad guy that you know is really a problem. That's my personal opinion there. But a lot of people, so they did this survey, and I tell people about this every once in a while. This will help to explain. They did this survey, and they asked people, so what do you think about the idea of term limits and about incumbents being booted out of office? And people said, yeah, that's a great idea. And then they asked them, what about your particular individual? Should that individual be booted out of office? Should they be term limited? And you know what? In general, the answer that was given by most people was no. No. That's what they said. Now, I don't know what you do about that. When you've got somebody who's been in office for, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, however long it is, that person has the opportunity to do untold amounts of damage if they're just left in their position with people not willing to boot them out over the course of time. But all of this having been said, the real hard thing, and the thing that I want to put across today, is it's darn hard to find replacement people for a given job. And that's particularly true in politics. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my little video here. This is my second video that I'm doing today because I didn't do a video on the 4th and I wanted to make sure that I had both videos done. As I say, today is Tuesday the 5th of January of 2021. Tomorrow then will be Wednesday the 6th of January of 2021, and I'm going to try and get another video out, Daily Summation video out tomorrow. Hopefully you're having a good day. It is almost the middle of the week. That's coming up tomorrow, as I'm sure you know at about this point. Hopefully things are going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Tuesday, the 5th of January, 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that, and you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.